Howdy folks, Rebecca Jolly here with Jolly Alchemy. Today we're going to do a neutrino forecast for Wednesday, the 10th of September, 2025. We are moving into a whole new grouping based around gate 47. Now, this is an interesting thing because the one that we just finished was gate 64, confusion. And this is, I think, the only place in the wheel where you have this moving across the channel from one grouping to the next. So it goes 64 and then immediately over to 47. So this is a very powerful interchange of what's happening here. It makes sense in some ways because it's a very powerful force on our planet. It's all about trying to make sense out of what it means to be human, which is something that we're all doing, in this virtual sandbox game where basically the point of the game is to figure out how to play the game, right? The rules of the game. So that's what this whole thing about the 64 and the 47 is about. So, very interesting, a lot of interesting things going on here, and I even have a couple of really cool stories. So, I'm looking forward to this one. All right, so 47, line 1. Now, 47 as a gate is called oppression or realization. Now, we've been talking about the energy of the 47 already because the 47 is trying to make sense of the confusion that is arising from, or the awareness of confusion that's arising from 64. So 64 is putting a lot of pressure on 47 to figure out what's going on, and especially in the first line that we're looking at today, which is taking stock of what causes hardship. And of course we're meaning mental hardship, which can also lead to other kinds of hardship, but it's mental oppression, it's mental hardship that we're trying to get out of here. I had an idea of how I wanted to do something and it didn't work, so what went wrong? And a very interesting thing that I learned in beginning a much deeper study of this gate is that a lot of it has to do with figuring out who's to blame. And this is an interesting thing for me. You might see in my partner's chart here that he has 47 in his Pluto. He has 47 in both of his Plutos, and he also has it in his conscious Uranus. So that's 3 activations of 47 for this person. So 47 is a massive influence in his life. Not this first line, but whenever we're having a disagreement, he's always wanting to know, oh, so you're blaming me you're blaming me for this. And I was always confused by that. Like, why is he always thinking that I'm just blaming him? I don't think about the world in terms of blame. Now, he's led me to realize that sometimes what I'm doing either is blaming him or definitely comes across as blaming him, but it never really seems like that from my point of view. And when I learned how much of the 47 is this tendency to try to apportion blame, to get out from underneath that mental oppression, it helped me to understand, oh, okay, that's just the way he looks at life. And this leads to our song for the day, which is Lose Control by Teddy Swims. I'd never heard of Teddy Swims before, but when this song came across my radar, I listened to it and I thought, you know what? That really has a lot of the kind of energy of the 47. And of course, interestingly enough, Lose Control also has the flavor of the 22 line 1 that we're looking at. Let's get that real quick. 22 line 1 is subordination. That's according to 64 Keys. Ra calls it the second class ticket. Oh, okay, so now we're getting into something where people might assign judgment, so we got to make that clear because there is no judgment in human design. It's the ability to accept and even enjoy a subordinate role. And I thought, who would accept a subordinate role? Who would enjoy a subordinate role? But what we're talking about here, and I am swinging back around to Teddy Swims, don't worry, is the 22nd gate. So the 22nd gate is here out of the emotional system. It's an individual channel, and it's about the ability of us as humans to be able to express our emotions, but Carefully, graciously. Yeah, 12 is the gate of cautious communication. And then 22 is the gate of, I think of it as the gate of moods, but actually maybe 55 is more the gate of moods. But then 55 is connected to it right here on the underneath. 55 comes up and connects right into 22. So 22 is called grace by some people. And it has to do with communication, with graceful communication. And what makes grateful communication is when a person is willing to listen first. And they encourage others to listen. They allow others to listen and access their emotions, access their empathy, so that true mutative change can take place in the world. And Ross says the only mutative change that ever happens and ever passes in society happens through this individual channel. However, the individual, as anyone with a decent amount of individual circuitry will know, the individual is in danger in society because society feels threatened by the individual. Society doesn't understand the individual. Society sees the individual doing this weird shit as a freak. And so then that person is, in danger of being alone, ostracized, misunderstood, blah, 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 all down the line. So it takes very careful communication in order for that 22 to come out properly. So here's why we have subordination. The person with the 22-1 says, no, you go first. Ross says these people are always, if they're wise, very cautious and very generous in traffic. No, you go first. No, you go first. That's the energy of them. So when it came around to the song Lose Control, I thought, oh, okay, there's definitely a tie there between losing control and subordination. There isn't really when you look at it, but more or less. But the interesting thing is, when I was listening to this song, I felt like, oh, this really exemplifies the feeling of the 47, this sort of like, where's the problem? I'm looking to blame. I'm looking to find the cause of the problem. And I thought to myself, I wonder if this Teddy Swims fellow has a 47th gate activation, because it feels like he really understands it. So Wikipedia is my best friend nowadays. Anytime I want to know something about someone, like what's in their chart, I run to Wikipedia. So I looked him up, and of course I don't know the time of day that he was born, but there's a very good chance that he carries in his design, it's a moon activation. And we know because of the transits how quickly the moon moves through the day. So, but there's a very good chance that he actually does have a 47th gate activation. And that's something that's underneath him writing the lyrics that way, that have this sort of a blaming or who's at fault kind of a thing. I'm losing control, and I think it's because of you kind of an energy. So I felt very vindicated when I saw it. I was like, I think I called that one. So anyway, taking stock of what causes hardship. They're really wanting to see that because they feel the mental oppression of that 47th gate, and they're looking to get out from underneath it, and that's what's going on there. All right, so our moon starts us in the beginning of the day here on the West Coast at 42 line 2, and that is ambition. Or wait a second, no. Oh yeah, I have to swing back around again. I will. 42 line 2, identifying trends. Now 42 is our gate of endings with a cyclical learning. So this is going to make a channel here today while the moon is still in 42. It's prudent recognition and use of trends. And so this is going to give the entire world sacral and root definition for a while. And the interesting thing is, when the moon is done with the 42nd gate, it's going to move right over to the 3rd gate. And because Pluto's in 60, we're going to get that it's through a different channel, but the same definition again for a few more hours, sacral to root. So, very interesting. If you're a non-sacral being, then you can count on having both some sacral energy and some root pressure today, even if you are alone. So, when the moon is done with 3, it will move to 27. This is the classic nurturing gate, one of these ones that I, in my not self, have leaned towards, but now I'm understanding. Oh, okay. And this reminds me of a quote that I ran across in my research today from Ra, and he said, "It's only what we are not that tortures us. We're tortured by what we are not." And this is a perfect example. I have been tortured for 2 decades by trying to be the perfect mother, by trying to be exactly what I am not. So, we're moving through 27 today. So it's the gate of nurturing, mothering, fathering. If you feel some nurturing energy, you can probably chalk that up to it being something having to do with that 27th gate. So that's the first of our people energies. However, I do want to swing back because another interesting thing about today is that our sun and earth activations this time around are mirroring the nodal activations, which are currently 22.2 and 47.2. So we'll be looking at that tomorrow. Very interesting. A lot of 2s accumulating here. But I've been watching these nodes go in and out of retrograde, and I don't know how that happens because the nodes aren't actually things. They're just positions of the moon. As the moon goes up and down, the nodes are just those ends of the spectrum of the cycle. And so what happens with the nodes is they tend to sit in these places longer than others because of the nature of a wave. It's approaching one end and then it's there and then it's away, and so then it goes in the middle and then it's approaching the other end, there and away. So that time when it's approaching puts an extra emphasis on the edges of the cycle, and that's what the nodes are for the moon. Anyway, I don't understand that aspect perfectly yet, but 47.2 I noticed as of yesterday, and I didn't have time to get into it because I was busy with yesterday. It's taken a down arrow. And I thought, okay, I've been watching it go in and out of retrograde and not really understanding what that means. And now it's got a down arrow as well. So I don't know if this is, I don't know how this is generated, but it showed up in 64 keys, transit lineup. So let's look at that. What is 47.2 when it has the down arrow? And of course, we are covering 47.2 tomorrow. So perhaps it's best to wait till tomorrow, but well. So, ambition. The indecisiveness, and this is, of course, the down arrow, or the that of this and that. The indecisiveness to use personal intelligence and the inability to sense when activity could lead out of oppression. And I tell you what, I have been feeling that energy. The inability to sense which activity could lead out of oppression, because I have definitely been feeling a mental oppression for the last few some days. As you may know, I've had definitely a little bit less energy in my transits. So I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe I am feeling that down arrow a bit. It's always a little bit of a puzzle to me to try to figure out, like, how is the transit energy fitting into my personal energy stream and my personal life? Oh, and by the way, this is the mental oppression scarf. It's very dark colored, and if you can see the design here, it's very pokey, like, we're diving into whose fault it is. So that's how this is chosen. I do have a whole list of people that exemplify this right angle cross. Oh, by the way, it's the cross of rulership we're looking at. And, oh, golly, I have more to talk about that. Okay, and I have a bunch of people, but I think I'm going to save the people for tomorrow because so much, and we're already moving on in time here. So, The cross of rulership, this right angle cross, of course, because it's a right angle, it's inwardly focused. This is 1, 2, and 3, where the process is all about me, and what's going on here right in front of my face before we move into the higher numbers and we start to go interpersonally. So, rulership in this case is all about and we do have, of course, let me get to this first, underneath the energy of 45 and 26. So it's continuing from the last grouping. This desire for power, the desire for material wealth, the 45, the teacher, the gatherer, and the 26 here out of the ego center that wants to really influence people, persuade them, manipulate them, if you take the judgment out of that term. So it's very much still about trying to raise in power or to be in a position of power, and that's how come we have this rulership energy here. But the 47 is about interpreting the past. Those images that come into the 47 from the 64 are, of course, past images, past bits of sequences that the 47 must then chew on and put into order, which is difficult on the psyche. This I know. Not personally, but of course I've been heavily influenced by that 47 for over a decade now, is a conditioning force. So an interpretation of the past in order to try to rise up and gain a leadership or rulership position, and that will come in relevant again when we talk about the people tomorrow, but I have to move on right now. So people energy, yes. So we looked at the moon, and Mercury is clocking at the beginning at 64.4, but we already looked at that yesterday. This is, of course, a close repeat of something we've just been through. 64.4, internal assuredness, when sensible action is possible, and then it moves into 5 and also into 6. So we're going to look at 5 and 6 real quickly as a review because we just went through 64. 64.5, confidence, the hope of a new order. Of course, when it means order, it means a mental order and stability in the mind. And victory, the gift of enjoying the confusion. Now, this is interesting because while I was waiting for the 47 song to come along, the perfect song for the day that I missed the other day, which is moving into enjoying the sense of confusion, came up. And I think it's because this transit energy is still carrying the 64. So since I skipped that song, I'll tell you what that one is. That song is Inertia by AJR. What an interesting song. I was like, holy shit, that's exactly the song for the other day. So there's that in case you want to go look that one up. All right, so that's moving through the 64, which is our Mercury energy. And then Venus is 7.6, which we've already looked at. Administration, the responsible apportioning of power. That's, of course, the last line of our leadership gate. And then it will move into 4.1. 4.1 is youthful folly. On the other side of the 63, the skepticism. So we have talked about that as well, where the skepticism makes a doubt, a question, and then you really need to do something to test it out. And youthful folly is about being willing to make a fool of yourself in order to prove that idea right or wrong. Yeah? So, folly, they call it. They've left off the youthful. Okay, fine. Youthful actually comes out of the I Ching. So its understanding depends on the perfect timing. So there is an aspect of timing to figuring out the answers in a logical way, to having, to finding this something for the future. Very interesting. That first line theme is always giving us an insight into the nature of the hexagram. So there it is for hexagram 4. All right, and then Mars is 32.2, up from 32.1 yesterday. 32 is, of course, this gate of continuity, staying stable through changes. And now it's 32.2, restraint, the restraint of power for the enhancement of harmony. And again, this is all about how do we achieve success. So there's very much good information here for us in how we can achieve success in understanding what the nature of success is in our bodies. It's a combination of ambition and continuity. Well, this restraint is a very important aspect of continuity. So that's an interesting thing to think about and to look at. Oh, and by the way, the other day when I told you that people came to see me from the outside, I had mentioned to those people this interesting trick about the transits, how when someone comes to see you or someone, has an appointment with you or whatever, you can go back and check their charts and see if those people show up in these four people energies for you. So the moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars. So I did that because I got one of their charts. Sure enough, she had two of the four energies in the transit. I love how that happens. So anyway, our global energy is staying stable for today with, of course, four of our planets in retrograde on the outside. And we have three possible connections being made today. Of course, because we have the 47 in the sun and in the nodes, and then 64 is Mercury's going through 64, we will still have this seeker of sense connected, giving everyone mental energy and crown energy. And then we will also have, as I mentioned before, the 4253, which is the grower, that cyclical development channel, the evolution channel. And then, of course, as soon as it's done with that, it'll switch over to this middle one, which is 360, the innovator. And that's about synthesizing and really bringing together the old and the new energy, the mutative channel for really bringing new change into our world. So, that is it for today. It's been a long one, but I hope it was an interesting one. Take care of yourselves. Come back for more fun and games tomorrow when we will look at the people who exemplify this rulership energy, and we'll talk more about the energy of what it means to be a ruler. Why do we spend so much energy on rulers? Because with this being a right angle cross, that means this comes up 4 times in the year. That makes a lot of rulers on the planet. Do we need that many rulers? Well, it turns out that they who lead must learn to follow. Yeah? Or, yeah. So we'll get to that tomorrow. So much to say. Until then, ciao.